Welcome to a whole load of property, business, and mindset, a podcast bringing together like-minded people who have an interest in all things business, property investing, and personal development.
Hi, Ollie. Thanks for coming onto the podcast this week. Really appreciate your time this morning. I know you're busy selling high-end properties across London.
Yeah. Keeps me busy.
Yeah, perfect. So, Ollie, I always start the podcast with asking our guests, a bit about their background. So, where are you from? Where did you grow up? So can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So, I'm obviously from the UK. I've been here since birth. I was born in a small town called Aldershot in Hampshire. So it's probably known as the home of the British Army. Yeah. Some people, when I say I was born in Aldershot, they're like, "Oh, were your parents in the military or anything?" But that wasn't it. I mean, so I was, just grew up there my whole life, basically, around that area. But I grew up in like a single mother household, right? So I kind of got that story of, grew up on a council estate and didn't have the best start in life, put it that way, got in with the wrong crowds, and ended up getting into some of the not good stuff in the beginning of life, right? Drugs, alcohol, all this kind of thing. I was around the wrong people, basically, So, and I think it is in life, it's always about who you surround yourself with. So I was kind of like born in that area, wasn't a great area at the time. And there was a lot of negativity around, and I just kind of got consumed by all that growing up, really. Obviously didn't have a father around to really guide me. So I was looking up to the kids, like the older kids on the estate, right? Who were, the cool guys, basically, who were also up to no good. So I kind of got in with that crowd and ended up, doing, having run-ins with the police, like I said, getting into drugs at an early age. I'd say between the ages of around 11 to 16, I was heavily using drugs, basically.
Wow, it's pretty young.
Yeah, it's very young. I'm surprised I'm still alive. I mean, I've got 3 or 4 guys who I was friends with back in the day who are not alive, either dead or in prison, basically. So it wasn't the best start to life, but saying that, I always had a loving mother, and I had a sister who was also, great. And I had the family support was kind of there, but, I was a bit of a rebel. So I went off and was trying to do my own thing, basically.
Yeah. And would you say that there was a pivotal moment that made you think, bloody hell, like I need to change? And similar story to you. I mean, I'm from a council estate, Southeast London, wrong crowds, had run-ins, and things like that. But there was one day that something happened and I thought, right, I've got to leave these behind and I've got to change what I'm doing. Is there something that happened in your life that thought, right, I need to, sort my shit out?
I'm not sure it was one thing, but it was an accumulation of things. And I think from an early age, I always knew that I was destined for something more in life. Do you know what I mean? I don't know why, could be, call it spiritual or whatever, right? But I kind of knew. And I was always this kid that was kind of like I was always kind of like a bit hyper, and I think everyone thought I was a little bit nuts. And as I went through life, that energy obviously went into the wrong things,
Yeah, of course.
But then what happened was, because I guess I realized that I had a bit of a higher level of awareness than some others around me. And I kind of I was just observing really on what was happening, and I was looking at some of the older kids and also some of my mum's friends as well, who were around her were not so good either. And they were a lot older, and I was looking at the outcomes in their lives, doing drugs and all these other things, right, which these people were doing, which seems to be the norm in some cases, right? But I was looking at the outcome of their life, and I thought, if I continue doing what I'm doing, I'm going to end up like that, basically.
Yeah, and like you say, accumulation of things. And I was just having a thought then. You say whether it's a spiritual awareness and obviously a high level self-awareness, but obviously not having a father figure, do you feel that subconsciously you always had this need to provide and need to do well to support the family, you know, being like, you know, I use inverted commas here, what a man in society should do?
Yeah,
do you think that has
100%,
helped as well?
100%. I mean, it's funny because even though I didn't have a father figure in my life, I hold a lot of traditional values in my family, right? So I do feel like the father should provide. I do feel like, you know, I'm very traditional in my views. I do think that obviously, you know, I do think women should have careers and stuff. But I do value, you know, the traditional household, basically.
Yeah.
And I think that probably does come from me seeing my mum working her butt off to provide for me and my sister with no man around. Do you know what I mean? And she, you know, she worked so hard. I mean, I just remember like seeing her. I just remember like we didn't have a lot of money, and I would see her doing all these little jobs, like going off and cleaning someone's house, coming back, working till 10 at night. She used to paint these little cottages. It was quite a random little job, but she used to paint and then they would go and sell them in like shops and stuff. And I just remember her doing that till like 10 at night. And I was like, man, you know, at the time I didn't know, but now I look back, I'm like, you know, she was working so hard to provide for us. And I think that gave me the view of like, I can't have that, you know, I can't see that basically. And I want to, you know, provide for my family and my mum as well, you know?
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. Like, you know, I would say something 100% the same with me. Even to this day now, my dad's in his 60s and he, you know, he does all this overtime. He's working his ass off. I've got my work ethic comes from him, but
yeah,
I'm working hard but smart, not just working hard. And I think that you know, when you're younger, you don't really realize. You see, you know, your parents going to work all the time, and you're thinking, you know, they're trying to make ends meet. But then as you grow up, that work ethic becomes normal to you. So you can apply that in your own role, but having the awareness and surrounding yourself with successful people, you can translate that into, you know, using it wisely, basically being smart about that work ethic and being able to grow and, like you say, providing for your family.
Yeah. And I think there's an element as well of like there's two pulls. There's a push and a pull, isn't there? There's like getting away from that life. Do you know what I mean? Like I never, you know, when I was involved in that life of crime and drugs and, you know, around the wrong people, like it was a hell. It was a living hell, right? And I just wanted to get away from that so much. But then I also didn't want to become mediocre as well. So I didn't want to just have the, you know, the standard middle class life either. That was hell to me as well. And I don't want that either. So there's only really one option, which is massive success, which is like going for the top basically. So that's what I think. I didn't know it at the time, but that's what I decided from a very early age.
Yeah. I've mentioned this before in my podcast. My sort of goal, what made give me more of a fire in the belly, was being at school and seeing a lot of wealthy people. And I wasn't from a wealthy background, and thinking, I wasn't jealous of it. I was like, how do I get that? What do I need to do to get that? And, you know, there's some people, the people you used to hang about with would be, you know, jealous or bitter towards wealthy people, thinking, oh, look at that smug prick sort of thing. But you were probably the same, thinking, how do I get that? I want that. You know?
Yeah, 100%. And I always remember like not having the good trainers at school.
Mine were football boots.
Yeah, I never had Adidas, right? All my mates had Nike, Adidas. I don't know how, because like they weren't from like, none of my mates were rich. Do you know what I mean? Like there was one or two who were, you know, from a wealthier background. But yeah, I had the 2-stripe, not the 3-stripe, and that bothered me.
Yeah.
I never blamed my mum. I was never like, oh, why can't you buy me this? I was like, I just was consciously observing and just throughout my life going, right, yeah, I need to make sure that I've always got good stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And now, like, I look back and when you actually think of the prices, so one of the reasons I did is my feet were so big. So all my mates were in like kid sizes at a certain point, and I had men's size feet. So they were like
Nice.
120 quid for a pair of boots when
Wow.
my mates were getting for 45, 50, you know, and
Yeah.
my dad's like, well, you're going to be in another size in about 3 weeks. I ain't paying
Yeah,
that money.
yeah.
But yeah, it was always observing and seeing what other people had. Is like, how do I get that? I want that. And
Yeah.
I've got 2 daughters and, you know, I might spoil them, but I used to get told no a lot. You know,
Yeah.
we can't afford that. We can't afford. I never want to be able to say that to my children. I want to be like, yes, if you do this. I want them to obviously understand the value of money.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of my main motivations is to be able to give them what they want, to
Yeah.
have choices in life.
100%. Yeah. And I've got 4 kids, right? So I've got 3 girls and a son, and a stepson as well. So I got
big household.
Yeah. That's another story, but I'm similar to you. Like I want to provide for them, but it's not like, you know, like you said, I don't want to like go and buy them a load of stuff because I know that that's just going to spoil them, right? So
yeah,
but I want to provide them with the right opportunities and not to have to go through the shit that I went through.
100% opportunities and knowledge to be able to do what they want, follow their path, but succeed at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, 100%.
There's definitely a lot of synergies there for sure.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's a bit about your background. So that was up until your teenage years. What did you do?
Yeah, I would say like 16, 17. I got heavily into martial arts from about 17 because I needed something, right? Because when you know, call it an addictive personality or whatever, but I needed something to replace the bad things I was doing.
Yeah.
So I got heavily into Thai kickboxing, basically. And I did that from probably 17 to about, I don't know, early 20s, basically.
Was you fairly successful in that?
I mean, I wasn't like I did some fights, like did some interclub fights. I did a proper fight in the ring. I went out to Thailand and trained out there for a while.
Wow.
So I got to a very, very proficient level, but it was never like my goal to become a professional fighter. So
yeah.
It
was just something to channel that energy because you weren't putting it into drugs, alcohol.
Yeah, 100%. And I think as well, like I wasn't very confident at that time. You know, like I was quite, you know, coming out of that era of like drugs had left me like not confident in myself.
Yeah.
So I was like, I need something to build myself back up. And Muay Thai gave that to me, you know, it made me strong. And everyone that I was around was like, you know, they would watch me training and be like, oh shit, like this guy's good, right? So, you know, everyone, not from like a fear aspect, but from a respect, you know, people started respecting me. Because whenever someone masters something, like you always get respect from your peers, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think whether it's subconscious or conscious, like everyone wants the respect and the recognition for the hard work they put in, you know, like even a bit of feeding of an ego. That goes down well, doesn't it? And you want to be elevated and you want to feel that what you're doing is being recognized and rewarded because it is hard work.
100%.
Whether it's in work, sports, or any business.
Yeah, and I started training, and then a lot of my friends started as well. So, you know, that was good. I brought some mates in and made new friends there. That was more of a positive crowd. So,
yeah, and that makes all of the difference, doesn't it? So, you did Muay Thai. You mentioned that you dropped out of college and you went straight in working onto a building site. Was that as a labourer? Did you have a specific trade?
Yeah, no, I was a labourer. So I actually did film and media at college, or I tried to. It was actually my goal from an early age to become an actor and a director, basically. That's what I really wanted to do. I was obsessed with films. I would watch films. I would print out the scripts of films and read them.
Wow.
And like play them back to myself. Do you know what I mean? Like in the mirror. But then I dropped out of college and just my mum was like, you have to get a job. Like I think I was like 18 at the time. And she was like, I've got a friend who's running a landscape construction company. Go and work with him. And I did that. And I enjoyed it. Like it was good because I was training Thai kickboxing and then I was doing labouring during the day. So I was like, at the time I was in ridiculous shape. So I felt good about myself, you know, like my body, you know, I was like I was getting a tan in the summertime, like laboring on the site. You know, I was doing kickboxing. It was good. It was fun at the time, you know. So, and I sort of like, I didn't really have a goal at that time, to be honest. So it was more about just like, you know, making a bit of money and just enjoying myself at that point.
Brilliant. So you went on to that, and then why property? So you've gone from labouring on a landscaping company, and why property? So we'll
Yeah.
touch on what you do now. You sell luxury real estate
Yeah.
in London, but obviously we're just trying to understand the journey, how you got to where you are now. So, you know, why property? Why real estate? How did you go from where you were to get into that point?
Well, the thing is, it's like I said, you know, like I always knew that I was destined for more than just, you know, the mediocre life, basically. And so I was labouring. I mean, I didn't really, I think I started my first business at about 24, 25, basically. So I was labouring. I started working with a mate of mine who I'd known for ages. And he had a company and I was working with him, and we were kind of in partnership, but I was also kind of working for him as well. So it was like I was getting firsthand knowledge of how to run and grow a business, even though I wasn't doing that. And we kind of like, we collectively built that up, and I was basically managing sites. So I would go and do a job. I'd have a team of guys under me, and we'd be doing like either building a landscape garden or building a small garage or something like this, you know. And then we went into building, we built a massive house for a developer, and it was like a massive step up from like doing small jobs, groundworks and stuff, to actually building a huge house. And after that, it was tough. Like we got, you know, construction's a tough game. We got knocked on money, and it was a bit rough. We had, you know, we were working day and night to get the job finished, and then we basically got stitched up at the end. So me and my mate sat down and we were like, right, we need to do something different. And we kind of started our own construction company, but then on the side we were doing some land stuff as well.
All right.
Like we acquired a bit of land through an option agreement where we secured that, got planning on it, and then we flipped that and made about 100 grand off the back of that. So then we were like, right, we're kind of onto something here. And then at the same time, we were growing our construction company, and we took it from 0 to $1 million turnover in 12 months.
Wow.
Which sounds impressive, but it was bloody hectic. And then it basically crashed and burned because we had like a client that we'd signed up, and he died basically. And that was like our main contract that we were, you know, all of our staff and everything was kind of tied into that. Once he died, went into like obviously the executor's will or whatever it is, and then they were like, look, we can't, you know, we don't want to continue with the project. We literally just started it. And that was it basically. So we had to shut that company. And then we were like, right, we don't want to do construction anymore because there's a load of risk. And we want to do something big that we can scale up. And at the time that was around 2013, 2014. And we were just kind of like, the market was just starting to grow out of the recession.
Yeah.
You know, because obviously 2008, 2009, it was pretty tough. 2010, 12, we were kind of doing our construction company, also learning a lot as well. You know, one thing I'll add is that we were doing like courses on like property development, property acquisition, you know, just really learning that trade basically. And then we scaled that up to from literally 0 to probably, I think at our peak, we were developing probably 50 million plus of property developments basically.
Yeah, it's no small feat, that, is it? Like, so are you talking like new builds or apartment blocks?
So what we did was we jumped on the permitted development when it was still quite fresh. So
Yeah.
it was literally only just starting. I mean, actually, I don't know if you know or heard of a guy called Martin Skinner.
I haven't, no.
Inspired asset management. So he actually died of a heart attack. He was an interesting character. I got on with him really well. He got a bit of like he was sort of like a bit of a love-hate guy. I know he kind of pissed quite a lot of people off, but at the time he was just starting his business, and he'd basically cornered the permitted development market in Croydon, and he was buying all these big office buildings and converting them into hundreds of flats. And me and my friend were like, wow, this is cool. Like, we can do this, basically. So we bought our first office building. We raised, I think it was about 3 million at the time, to buy this office building and develop it out. And the GDV of that, we took that from a tired office building into about 27 apartments.
Wow.
Got planning to develop the whole thing, new build on top. And yeah, I think in total that project cost about 5 million to build, basically. So we raised all that through debt and equity. Learned a lot about the whole process throughout that, you know, how to raise money, how to structure the finance on the deal. And then obviously we managed to sell it in, I think we sold all of the apartments in like one weekend at the time.
Jeez. And so did you make much on that?
So the project dragged on a bit. So we made some good money on the first bit, but the second bit took quite a long time.
Yeah.
And basically all the profit was kind of stuck in the top part of these 5 apartments, which we just basically signed over to the investor. So, but it kind of like we learned a lot from it, you know. And then we took that and we literally bought, I think the biggest project that we developed was about 100 apartments, which was a permitted development scheme that we did, which was, it was about 100 units in Surrey, basically.
Wow.
Massive. It was a huge scheme. It was great. I mean, like, it was really, really nice. Like, once it was built, it was amazing. We always put a lot of time and effort into our product and what we were producing. But the difficulty was with us is like the market basically became quite tricky around. So basically when we started, it was mad. Like, we would launch a development, it would be sold within like a couple of days. Yeah.
Wow.
And then Brexit hit 2016. Brexit completely screwed the market. So we were still developing, but it was taking longer to sell the apartments. And then, you know, we kind of went more into like I basically single-handedly signed a joint venture with Woking Council.
Yeah.
They funded a £35 million development, which was 150 apartments.
Wow.
For us. And we got to a good stage on that. But effectively what happened was, like, we were growing all these developments out, building everything, but the market was kind of like a bit shaky. So then around sort of like 2019, when we were at our peak, we had probably 200, 300 apartments under development and a load of other sites in planning. We had about 600 units in planning. We were going to be building like towers.
Yeah.
Like, we basically cornered Woking, like the way that we saw Martin Skinner corner Croydon, and we basically cornered Woking. We were on to be the biggest developer in Surrey, probably, from all the units that we had on. We had 3 developments in Woking, which were probably going to be around 600 units through different tower schemes. They had a tall building policy there, which allowed that to happen. They were obviously funding a scheme with us. But then end of 2019, we had one development which we were trying to sell, and we couldn't get mortgages on the apartments for whatever reason. I don't know the exact reason. Effectively, the surveyors were just saying to the banks that they weren't willing to go and value the apartments because it was permitted development, and they didn't like the fact that it was in a sort of.
Was it like, were they 30 meter square type apartments?
They weren't small. They weren't small.
Oh. They don't lend on ones under the amenity standard. Well, they do, but
yeah,
not much now. So I didn't know whether they fell under the new amenity standards.
Yeah, so I don't know it was a couple of years ago now, but I think that the problem was the development was on a business park, which they really didn't like. Now, it was alongside residential. It was not a bad business park. It was, some of the developments you see on business parks are terrible, but it was like a leafy business park, and it was a very high spec and high standard, but the banks were just not willing to lend on it. So I was trying to then turn that into more of a private rented sector scheme.
Yeah.
So do it as a rental, you know. I mean, the rent roll, I think at the time was going to be around $1 million a year.
Wow.
And in fact, it would be a lot more now. And I was at the time. So basically, the contractor they were very clever. They were very clever. They basically waited until the last minute, till they knew our loan was nearly up, and then they hit us with a massive cost overrun of £2 million. As of this was around the end of
Was that a time overrun, or
it was a bit of
materials?
time? I mean, there was a lot going on, so it was a bit of time and it was a bit of cost, basically. But RQSs were battling it out. RQS was saying no, absolutely no way. Anyway, the bank kind of pressured us into agreeing it. They sort of said, "Look, you know, if you don't agree this, we're going to effectively take over the scheme." So I came up with a plan to pay them a bit now and then draw out a bit over the next year. And I was just working out ways to make it work. So I obviously didn't want to lose the development, because that's like, you know, any developer, the minute one of their schemes goes down, it's very hard to keep everything alive, you know. So but effectively we couldn't raise the extra money to do it, and the bank eventually did pull the plug on it.
Wow.
And then I was early 2020, I was working to then, I'd created a whole financial plan of how to get out of the mess, because obviously that scheme had gone down. Investors were starting to talk. We'd raised 20 million of loan notes from private investors. And that, you know, that was the kind of, you know, the story was getting out to the wider people, basically. And it was a very difficult time. I had a cash flow that basically showed that we could trade out of it, so I wasn't too concerned. We could have isolated that site and basically traded out of it, but then COVID hit, and then then it was like, well, that wasn't built into the business plan to get us out of that, you see. So then we really didn't know what to do. And I had many meetings with our investors to raise more money and put more money in. I mean, that one specific scheme, you know, we needed an extra £2 million. So I went to our investors and I said, look, put another 2 million in. If we hold this for 10 years, it's going to double in value. The scheme that was worth about £20 million at the time, about 2022, something like that. Yeah. Right now, with the rental increase, everything that's happened, it would probably be worth about 30.
That's only a few years later.
Yeah. I mean, no one could have seen that we would come out of COVID into a housing boom, right? And like, you know, the rent's increasing massively and everything. Like, no, at the time, we'd just been locked down in our houses, right? So it was like, you know, trying to talk to investors about 10 years time was basically not happening. So we ended up just having to effectively shut everything down from around sort of March, April 2020.
So what's happened with it now then? What's the development doing?
Well, it's
owned by the bank.
Yeah, so the bank took it back, and then they are now, I haven't really looked into it, sort of like, you know, but I think they must have sold it on by now, I would have thought. Yeah, because it was finished, it was complete. It was this amazing development. But like some of the sites we had, you know, they got sold off. I actually, throughout 2020, I was working very, very hard to save some of the sites so that I could then, like, you know, pay back some of the investment, right? So it was like I was working real hard during 2020 to, like, had one site in Woking, which was like a tower, which would have been like 300 units. And I was trying to piece that together where I could have, like, you know, leveraged that to repay everyone. But the problem with that is, you know, is I put my neck out basically, and I got attacked for it massively. So loads of press about me and my business partner, about how, you know, a lot about us kind of like doing things that effectively would look like fraud potentially, right? So there was a lot of this going, like, oh, where's all the money gone? Where's this? Where's that? And, you know, like sort of all this mud being thrown at the wall effectively. So it was a tough time. And I could have just shut it down. You know, the minute COVID hit, I could have just shut the whole thing down and just said, that's COVID, that's done, right? But I tried to save it. And unfortunately, through trying to save it, I got massively attacked. That was probably the hardest time in business, I think.
Yeah, I can imagine that's a huge challenge. One, all the adversity you've faced in the actual developments, the macro external factors that are way out of your control. There's no one could foresee what was going to happen with COVID. Like, I had investors pull out of deals in March, April 2020. They kept their only properties in Hull, less than sub £100,000, but then properties now, worth 10, 15, 20 grand more. So you just think like, no one understood what was going to happen to the market, but it's just the way it went in the end, isn't it? And, some people, they have lost out. Some people carried on buying. Have obviously.
No, exactly.
But, I reached out to you through LinkedIn after seeing your post, and one of the comments on there was someone just trying to attack you. Literally, there was nothing apart from news articles. And I guess the more successful you become, or the bigger the projects, there are bigger the risk, bigger
100%.
the reward, but also the bigger the failure. And there's always people out there to slam you and attack you. And I think it's important to understand from your side what has happened. Due to what happened, shit did hit the fan. You, like you say, you try getting out of it. But we all know the media only tell one side of the story, and that's the story that sells papers.
Yeah, that's
isn't it? At the end of the day, I fucking hate the media, to be honest. I hate journalists. It's something that just bugs me. But I'm not going to get into that. That's probably a podcast for another day. So, I appreciate you sharing that story. It's you're open and honest about it, which is good. I think if you try and hide things like that, then people sort of question. Like, you're open and honest.
I mean, I get, even now I get investors messaging me sort of saying, I lost. And to be fair, look, I'm not here saying, the business went down. A lot of people lost a lot of money. And I'm not here saying it was not my fault and don't blame me and blah, blah, blah. Like, we made mistakes, right? But we were trying to manage a big company. And, we had like 20 staff. We had, we're managing tens of millions of builds. And you know how hectic that can be. Different QSs, different projects, different problems, right? And, but unfortunately it went down. And I think what a lot of people don't understand with property development is when a company goes into liquidation and sites go into administration, the value that they were all of a sudden drops by probably 50%.
Yeah.
And the minute they go into that, they get sold off cheap. And then the asset that was there, that was back in the money, is then not there, and then people lose a lot, right? So that's kind of what happened. But I had also personally guaranteed a lot of those loans, so I'd put my neck on the line, right, financially. And I was made bankrupt as a consequence of that. I didn't go. I wasn't. Luckily for me, I wasn't made bankrupt over some small amount. It was around 10 million that I was made bankrupt for. So. But we all kind of, you look at people's stories like Donald Trump and guys like this, big developers, like they've all been through it.
Yeah.
They've all been through it.
My question is, how did you come back through that? And, this podcast is property business mindset. You've got to have a strong, mental resilience to come back from something like that. I can imagine it was a bit of a tough time when all that shit was going on. You're worrying about obviously people's money and the developments, your staff. It's people's lives at the end of the day as well. Like, I can imagine it was a tough time, but how do you come back from that?
I think it's just, you've really got to keep your eye on the top of the mountain, because if you don't, you get consumed by it massively, and it kind of, I don't want to say too much about my business partner because he's not here to sort of, defend himself and stuff, but it really affected him a lot more than me. But he was very focused, he took a lot of it to heart, like all of the comments, like there was a whole, what do you call it? Like blog thing that was set up, which basically had all these comments about me and him and the business. And it was terrible, like, so you read some of the stuff and it literally makes you feel like a criminal.
Yeah.
Because all these people were attacking us. And he sort of took it to heart, and he basically, went he sort of, he's not around. So, I continued basically. And I think it was just purely part of it's family as well. Like I knew that I couldn't just run away. I couldn't just put my head in the sand. I got 4 kids, I'm married, like I've got people to support. So I couldn't just stop, right? I had to do something, had to go out and like rebuild. And also, I also had a duty to my own name that I knew that I hadn't done anything malicious or anything wrong in that sense, right? I hadn't gone out to steal a load of money or, like defraud people like some of the comments are, right? So I kind of owed it to myself, and I just kept that vision in mind as well of where I wanted to be. And I knew that, if I keep my eye on the top of the mountain and I keep that vision there and that same spirit of me wanting to be a success, not in a selfish way either, because I know like when I have built myself back up, I'm going to have a lot of wealth to be able to help others.
Yeah.
That's really what it's all about at the end of the day.
Giving back.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I want to do. And no one helps other people by staying small. Like you can help your family, but there's bigger problems on this planet that need to be handled, right? Just look around, COVID, war in Ukraine, all this kind of stuff. And it's really like at the end of the day, I want to build something which can allow me to, if there is something like a war somewhere and I have the wealth, I can help that.
Yeah.
Right now I can't help that because I'm not, I'm just coming out of this, but I keep my eye on the top of the mountain and the vision there that one day I'm going to be back to where I want to be and be able to help others effectively.
And I think a lot of that relates to your younger years. Things we discussed at the beginning of the podcast is wanting to always do them great things and the subconscious of being the supporter, the provider.
Yeah.
That's probably them formative years has probably helped you come out of where you've been recently, which is
100%. I mean, it's not, like I've been through bad things in the past. I came out of like heavy drug use and addiction and, being around people who were going to jail and all this kind of stuff. And I brought myself out of that. So I think if you can do that, you can do anything effectively. Yeah. And I knew that although it was tough and what I went through was bad, I owe it to myself, to my family, and even I actually owe it to the people who lost money, because if I stay small, I'm never going to be able to then, help others and like help people in general. Right. So.
Yeah. Now, listen, I appreciate you sharing that story. I'm sure a lot of people will take a lot of learnings and lessons from it. And I suppose one of the key points is property is not easy, is it? Developing ain't easy.
It's not easy. No, that's the thing. I think you've got to understand that when you get into it, a lot of people look at the guys driving the nice cars and, I'm a property developer and look at this massive scheme, but there's so much risk that comes with it. And you've got, you do have to personally guarantee. Like, I don't know any development bank that lends money unless it's on a very low leverage that isn't going to ask for a personal guarantee. So you better make sure.
Yeah, definitely. And like even on small mortgages, like on the properties we still have to, we buy in a limited company, we still have to personally guarantee everything.
Yeah.
So banks require that. They want to be protected, don't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Listen, let's talk about the juicy stuff. So luxury real estate.
Yeah.
You said you're one of the top sellers at Tyron. The company, obviously various agents across the UK. I think looking into it is about 65, 60, 70 agents.
Yeah, I think we're probably getting up to around 80 now, to be honest.
Fantastic. So it is growing then.
Yeah, no, it's growing. I mean, we are, fastest growing real estate agency in the UK. And the reason why I joined Tyron was because first of all, I saw him popping up on my LinkedIn and Instagram all the time. So I was like, this is interesting. I need to have a look at this.
Yeah.
I never get involved, as you can tell from my story, right? I never get involved in anything which is going to be mediocre or small. I'm not interested in that. I want to get involved with people and businesses who are making a difference. And when I sat down with Ty to understand his business model and what he does, I was blown away by how different it is to what's currently happening in the luxury and just the estate agency scene currently in the UK, right?
Yeah.
So the UK estate agency scene is effectively 20 years behind the US.
Yeah.
So you've got guys that are earning 25 grand a year, basic, driving around in, you know, wearing now, no disrespect to these guys, right? But you've got guys like this trying to sell a multi-million-pound house who may have or may not have had any training and don't really know how to deal with luxury homeowners or how to sell luxury homes. And it's just basically a bit of a disgrace to those people effectively. And they're sort of, the estate agents of this day are sort of leveraging the brands that they've had for like hundreds of years, right? Like Savills, I think, is 100 years old or something like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, and there are good agents in these agencies, like, don't get me wrong, but they're few and far between. And what I loved about what Tyron Ash is bringing is that it's a totally different model. It's more akin to like the US model, basically.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a lot of social media, which is obviously the new thing, basically. Well, it's not new, but, you know, for selling luxury properties, it is new.
Yeah.
You know, there's not a lot of people doing it effectively. So I was like, also, you know, you got to understand that it was never my aspiration to become an estate agent. Never.
Yeah,
right? I
yeah.
always wanted to be a principal. I always wanted to buy and own property, but I needed something basically, you know, I'd just been made bankrupt, and effectively I needed something which I didn't have to raise any money. I didn't have to do any, you know, like no one could throw any stones at me for doing that, right?
Yeah.
And it was a progressive agency, and I could just go and put all my effort into it and make it a success, basically. And that's what I did. I mean, I came on with Tyron Ash probably mid last year, and yeah, very quickly became like one of the top sellers in the company.
Yeah. To be fair, one of the things I wanted to touch on is about the way the US and even Australia, like you say, the principals, the brokers. You know, I'm sure a lot of people out there have seen Selling Sunset, Selling OC, but
yeah,
obviously Tyron Ash and his company, there was a Channel 4 program on it.
Yeah,
Mega Mansion Hunters. So
yeah, that's right.
It's the UK version, let's say. But
yeah,
I used to watch a program years ago. I've always been fascinated in real estate, making money from real estate, whether it's selling, buying, investing, developing. Like it's just what I have a passion for. And $1 million list in New York, the commissions they would make. So, you know, 3% of selling a property. I don't understand the full mechanics. Like, is it the seller that pays it? Is it the buyer pays it? Obviously, and then
in the US, yeah. In the US, it's the buyer and the seller usually. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So what's the UK setup? So let's say, for example, I'll reach out to you and say, look, I've got a £20 million property in Surrey, 6-bed, 8 baths.
Yeah.
Fucking lovely. Sell it for me. How do you sell luxury real estate?
So
why is it completely different to standard estate agency?
So effectively in standard estate agency, what you'd have is you'd have someone that would come out and do a valuation and get that client, get you signed up, right? They would then pass it over to their negotiator. I don't know the full thing, but I think it's like negotiator who would come in and then do viewings or something. The whole thing would basically be split up into little jobs. And each one of those people would be, you know, on a low salary with a little bit of commission, basically. The difference with us is, which is like the American version, is we handle the whole process from start to finish. So through training with Tyron Ash, through my experience in real estate, through my drive as an entrepreneur, I have learned the whole process from start to finish on how to list and sell a luxury property, list, market and sell a luxury property. So right the way through to, you know, sales progression and actually getting the property closed out, which is one of the hardest bits. So that's the main difference, basically. And then the other difference is that, you know, like I said, we're entrepreneurs. We're not staff. Like, we don't earn a basic salary. We don't go to an office every day. Like, we're out meeting clients. We are hustling. We are listing and selling these properties, and the commissions that we can make is a lot more than what your sort of normal high street estate agent can make.
Yeah. So can you share a case study of numbers, let's say?
Yeah. So one of the properties I sold was a £2.5 million mansion in Lytham, St Anne's, which is like Millionaires Row in Blackpool, basically.
Yeah.
It was a referral. It was a guy that I've known for a long time, saw what I was doing on social media, reached out to me and said, Ollie, my business partner needs to sell his property. It's probably one of the most impressive properties I've seen. Can you come and have a look? So I went up there with my colleague, Reese Ash, who's Tyron Ash's brother.
Yeah.
Good friend of mine now as well. Absolutely top guy. And we went over there and we pitched this guy on our process, on how we do it. And we filmed that. So we do filming for every single property we do. So we go in and we do full property tours. You know, the agents, us, are actually presenting that property to the public. You know, so we're sort of building our brands, but also, you know, everything sort of ties in together. And we do like a big marketing campaign around it. We then launched that actually on Boxing Day 2021.
Yeah.
And it became the most viewed property on Rightmove. So the number one most viewed property in the whole of the UK between Boxing Day and New Year's Eve. Now, that was down to our marketing campaign, our social media, not the tabloids, but the papers. Some of the press got involved, right? Because they heard it became number one. We landed up on some of the, you know, Instagram pages, you know, like real estate, this and that. I can't remember the exact ones, but effectively we created this ripple effect, which basically gained so much traction for that property. You know, we had people messaging us through Instagram, can we come and see it? You know, all this kind of stuff. And we launched it at, you know, a good price, offers over 2.5 million, attracted in loads of buyers. We held our first open house end of January. So we did, you know, we do the proper American style open house, basically.
Inspection, open houses, yeah.
Yeah, like glitz and glamour, get everyone in at the same time, you know, and like create that kind of buzz around it, right? So we did that, and we managed to get it sold for around, I think it was about 250 to 300 grand over the offers over price, basically.
Amazing.
Yeah, and the owner was very, very grateful for everything we did. In fact, he said, you know, after the marketing campaign, because obviously the open house was a little bit delayed after the marketing campaign. And he said, between that time, he was like, if you guys can't sell it, no one can. After that, because he was like,
pressure's on.
Well, he had all of his mates, right, said, look, I've seen your house. It's on social. I've seen you, you know, like it's become this and that. So he had loads of people. And he actually built the house himself. So he was also really proud.
Yeah, of course.
Because he was like, he put a lot of, you know, it was I mean, you know, kind of like need to give him a bit of respect as well, because he created an amazing property, which we were selling, right? But it is all about showcasing these properties in the right way. Like you can't just list the property on Rightmove and wait for the phone to ring anymore. Like photos do not do properties justice. Like you have to use video. You know, Instagram's becoming a video platform now.
TikTok's huge as well. I see a lot on
TikTok's
TikTok.
the biggest in the world. Do you know what I mean? So it's all video. So what we're doing is just going heavy on video, and then the process behind it is absolutely spot on.
Yeah.
The way we deal with all our clients, everything is top notch, basically.
Yeah. And commission wise then, is there like a flat percentage? How do you earn your money? Obviously, you know, watching the program, I think there was one of the girls, she was 19, 20, was it about 250 grand she earned in a year? Yeah. Mega money, isn't it, for someone that age?
Yeah, exactly. No, it can be done. I mean, our standard fees is around 3%.
Yeah.
But, you know, I never talk about fee because it's the
value add, isn't it?
It's the thing I need to prove my value first. So I always say to every client, look, let me prove my value. Do you know what I mean? And then we go from there effectively. And we, you know, the good thing is with Tyron Ash Real Estate is the training is top notch, and the way that we're taught to do everything is top notch as well. So, you know, from literally the first meeting with the client right the way through, we're trained on every single aspect and how to become an expert in the whole thing. So when we're managing one of these multi-million-pound properties, like everything is done to the highest standard.
Yeah. Which
is why we can command a higher commission, you know, because we're listing and selling these properties over market, you know, it's hard to say like over market value, but we're getting the maximum market value for the property that is achievable in the current market.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Like you say, it's like you say, fastest growing agency. You know, I went watching that program, you know, it changed the way I sell properties. I'm not an estate agent. I'm, you know, property broker, but it's not luxury real estate. I work with various investors, UK and overseas, just depositing cash into assets, basically.
Yeah.
You probably have the same, but just different like, you know, benchmark in terms of numbers. But
yeah,
it's marketing. You can't sell anything without marketing, and it's having the clients. You need to know your clients, what they want, what they need, and you need to be able to, like say, provide that service for the seller. Like say, video is extremely important because people need to see as much of it as they can up front before they even step foot through the door. A lot of people, especially in the luxury market, you know, the people who have that money, they don't have a lot of time. So they need to know as much as they can up front before they obviously want to go and view it or get their, you know, buying agent to do the same.
Definitely. And everyone's on social media. So what you'll find is that people will check you out on social media first before anything. Yeah. Now, so it's like your business card, right? So they go onto your Instagram or your TikTok, like, what do they see? And it might be that they've been following you for 6 months before they contact you about doing business. So, you know, it's all about consistency with social media. You've got to keep posting. You've got to build your personal brand and get that out there. It doesn't matter what you're doing, what business it is, whether it's real estate or anything different. You know, it's all about promoting yourself now.
100%. So what's next? Where are you going? What's your sort of plans? 2 year, 5 year, 10 year? What are you sort of looking at going forward?
So I want to be careful what I say because I don't want to come across like big headed or anything, right? But at the end of the day, I have very, very big goals, and at some point I will get back into property investing and developing, right, at the right time. Now, I wish I'd have known what I know now through what I've learned with Tyron Real Estate as a developer, because I probably would have done things a bit differently. And, you know, what I'm doing right now is building a very, very good platform to be able to launch other parts of my real estate business. Yeah. Now, the good thing is with Tyron Real Estate is I'm self-employed and I can build other businesses around that as well. So at the minute, I'm very focused on what I'm doing there, and that will continue. But at the right time, when things are right, I want to start investing in properties and doing other developments as well. But I want to focus mainly on long-term income.
Yeah.
So I want to focus on buying properties which I can then realize the income over like a 10 to 15 year period, effectively.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. My challenge at the minute with, you know, there's lots of property trainers, property courses, you know, you can get option agreements, no money down, you know, all these sort of buy, refurbish, refinance strategies. But a lot of people I speak to now, especially in the current market, want all their money day one and make you know, long wealth that you'd accumulate over 10, 15 years on day one. It just doesn't happen like that. And that's the conversation that I have with a lot of investors. Don't get me wrong, I've done some fantastic deals for myself. Myself and my business partner have amassed quite a nice portfolio. We're doing our first commercial to residential through the permitted development rights because they changed again 2020 or 2019, I can't remember. They changed again. So it, you know, but I understand that it's not year one money. It's year 10, 20, 30. You know, I'm not going to sell. I don't want to sell anything.
I wouldn't.
Exactly. I saw a term on LinkedIn the other day, HODL. I was thinking, what the fuck's that? Hold on for dear life. And I thought, brilliant. That's what I'm going to do for property. Like, because like I say, again, similar to you want for your family, you know, in 10, 15, 20 years, think how much the property prices increase. And the rent is always going to increase. You're always going to refinance, remortgage, pull the money. Like, you're creating wealth over the long term. And I think that's an important point. You should realize the income over 10 and 15 years.
100%. Has to be, because, you know, like, I mean, if I look back at all the properties that I developed, if I'd have kept hold of those, my net worth would probably be about 100 million right now.
Yeah.
So
you wouldn't be on my podcast. I'd have to
well,
pay for you.
I might be in like somewhere sunny, like with
Yeah.
a private jet in the background. Do you know what I mean? So I'd still be on the podcast, but it'd be a bit different. But yeah, like I now know that you can't, and it wasn't even like I was developing for short-term profit. Like I was growing a business. I wanted my business to grow long-term. I was never into, I mean, there's some things on the internet about us being like get rich quick developers, whatever the hell that means. But we certainly weren't planning to get rich quick. We wanted to grow a brand and a company, which is what we were doing. But now I look back, I'm like, the problem was the money that we were raising had a short-term view on they wanted to get in and out and get their profit. Now, the problem was when things go wrong, sometimes you can't get that profit quick. So you have to sit in it long-term. Yeah. So I think everyone needs to be educated on the fact that even if your development is a 12-month development, they need to be educated that if something goes wrong, they have to be prepared and willing to leave their money in over the long term.
Totally agree. I've changed the way I'm looking at raising finance. So not on the scale you did, but just to leverage funds. So 200 to 500K at the minute, but not in 1 year, in one project. It's look, we'll pay your interest annually over 5 years, but use that cash wisely to buy property, remortgage every 2 years or even 5 years, and use the cash flow to obviously service that loan. But them looking at, yes, the money's held up for 2 to 5 years. Obviously, I need to understand all the FCA regulations behind all that and have it correctly drawn up.
Definitely do that.
Yeah, exactly. It's a 2 to 5, well, at least over a 5 year term, because then that's when, like you say, over the 5 year, you're buying 10 properties now in 5 years. You could service a lot of that loan just from the uplift. And obviously, you've got the cash. I won't be benefiting in the first 5 years. None of that money's mine. None of the income's mine. But once it's all paid back and I've amassed this portfolio, then it's mine. It's a 5, 10, 15 year long-term view.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, like you said, the problem is at the minute is with a lot of personal development courses, Instagram, social media, everything looks like it happens overnight. And I think people just want that quick fix, which just isn't possible. Like people even look at me and some of the agents at Tyron and, they probably think that we're like loaded, do you know what I mean? But they don't see the hard work that's gone through. They don't see the deals that have fallen out of bed. They don't see the hustle and the grind, do you know what I mean? Like, and the time it takes. I mean, the only reason why I became one of the top salesmen in the company was because of my 10 years, 15 years experience in business and sales. And, like I can go and sit down with a homeowner and not be rattled because I've sat in like multi-million-pound business meetings, so I'm leveraging that. But even for me, it was still hard. Even I underestimated the effort that it takes to become a successful real estate agent. Like, it's not easy. And, I have these conversations with any new people joining, and also clients as well, and people looking to buy properties, because even buyers are looking at a deal now, or, a house purchase, and they're like, oh, is it a good deal? And I'm like, well, how long do you want to live in it? 10 years. Well, don't worry about what you're paying now.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, obviously, don't be stupid, but at the same time, 10, 15 grand here or there, like, if you're going to live in this property for 10 years, don't worry about overpaying right now. Like, it's going to double even if we go through a recession, you're still going to end up on the right end in 10, 15 years time. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And, not to say that history is what the future is going to look like, but if you look at property prices over the history, if it's on that same trajectory, it'll be fine. Average double every 10 to 12 years.
Well, especially in the UK, because we have a massive problem here.
We're in Ireland.
Housing.
We're in Ireland. I think there's a stat with net migration being zero, it would take 26 years at the current build rate to house everyone, and that's 26 years, and we still can't meet the demand, and there's still net migration isn't zero. So
it's mad.
But one of the best places in the world to invest in real estate.
I think so, 100%. I mean, obviously there are difficulties with regards to, the current politics of the country, but the supply and demand factors are still there.
Definitely.
And it's going to take a long time to fix that. And if we ever do fix it, do you know what I mean? Like,
exactly. It's one of them things that, you know, could put its finger in the air at the minute in terms of some politics. But
yeah,
listen, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. One of my
I
favourite
appreciate
episodes anyway. So I appreciate
Nice.
that. And how do I get a job?
Yeah. Well, let's have a chat.
No, but like, listen, appreciate you coming on, sharing your story. A lot of valuable learnings from that, and it's been an interesting episode. So, how can people find you? Instagram, Facebook, TikTok.
All of them: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Just search Ollie Mason Real Estate. That's
Brilliant.
me, basically.
I'll share all the details in the show notes anyway.
Yeah, awesome.
But like I say, pleasure having you on. It's been a good episode.
Yeah, and anyone listening, like, if you want to reach out to me, if you've got questions about selling luxury real estate, investing in real estate, business mindset, maybe you're going through a tough time at the minute, maybe you've got some haters on your back, like, just feel free to DM me, reach out to me. I'm here. So
amazing. I think a lot of people will appreciate that.
Yeah,
lovely.
100%. Cheers, Dan.
Cheers.
Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time, mate. Thanks for inviting me on.
Bye.
It's been a pleasure.